Welcome, everyone, back to another new episode of Improper Mimi. This is your host, Mimi Jax, where we talk about things that empower women at home, work, and play. That's pretty much basically every different aspect of our lives, just about. And today, I'm excited because we have a guest with us, and I'm really excited because I know that she has a great topic for her podcast. I know that she's doing a lot of different things, and I can't wait for her to share some of these with us. So, Paulette Erato, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for
Yay!
having me, Mimi. This is a lot of fun.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think the listeners are going to have a really good time with today's episode. And why don't we get started by you introducing yourself and telling us a little about you and why you love what you do so much?
Mm. Well, hi everybody. My name is Paulette Erato. If anybody out there plays crossword puzzles and the clue is Greek muse and it's 5 letters, it's Erato. So there you go. You just won it crosswording. And I am a first generation Latina who speaks a bit of Spanglish, sometimes good, sometimes not well. And I also just happen to be child free. So that is what my podcast is about. It's called La Vida Más Chévere, which for your non Spanish speaking audience means translates loosely to the most carefree life or living our best lives. And
Mhm.
it's aimed at child free Latinas because we exist, we're out here, but we're not very visible. So I'm here to shine a beacon for all my people.
Yes, and I love it. And when I first came across you, I came across you on TikTok, and I was like, "Oh, I like her. She's bubbly personality. Cool, cool." And then I think I saw you did a post about a conference that I think we are both thinking of going to, and
Right.
I was like, "Oh, I was going to go to that conference." I was like, "Okay, yeah, oh yeah, the travel, the weather, everything was horrible,"
Whew.
and then. And then I saw you posted something about plants, and I was like, hold up, wait a minute. Is this my new best friend?
Yes, I am your new best friend because I love travel, podcasting, plants, and all the good things in this life.
Yes, also many good things in this life. So, and no problemo if we want to do a little bit of Spanglish because, my Spanglish is great. I mean, I haven't had that many drinks, so it may not be so great right now, but usually, my Spanglish is on point. Um,
Sweet.
Yes, I have a bunch of friends, and this topic comes up sometimes. The topic, that you share on your podcast about living a child-free life, and in a Latina community or family, like, do you feel that it's even more pronounced? That are people always asking for like, where are the kids? ¿Dónde están las niñas? Like, where are they?
Mimi, I have to tell you, and I tell my podcast audience this all the time. I've been very lucky that I am not the first
Good,
child free person in my family.
nice,
I
yeah.
also apparently am not going to be the last because I've already heard from some of the youngins that they're like, yeah, we don't want kids. Gen Z like
Yeah.
is figuring it out way early, so good for
Oh
them.
my gosh. Yeah.
But I don't think I had the same experience as other people in child free forums and in
Mm.
Facebook groups and stuff like that. Like I didn't ever feel like I had to justify it. People were just like, yeah, that's Paulette. And in
Oh
fact,
yeah.
I was at a party with my cousin over the summer and she's like, "Oh, you always knew you wanted to be child free." And I was like,
Oh
"Huh.
wow. Uh-huh.
Okay." She's like, "Yeah, no, I remember." And we're only like 2 years apart. And she's like, "I
Hmm.
remember when we were like 10 and you were just like, "Yeah, no, I'm not having kids." Well, I don't remember that conversation at all, but I also don't really remember a time where I thought it would be like a fun thing to do. So I think we're all
Yeah.
born child free because
Hmm.
like we're all born without kids, and I just stayed that way. Um,
Yeah.
I think it's the least interesting thing about me, honestly. Like, I think the fact that I have curly hair is way cooler. But to me, it
Hmm.
is as natural as the curls out of my head and the fact that I'm right-handed. I feel like this is just who I am.
Yeah.
And but I realize that's not necessarily the case for other people. And from
Hmm.
what I've seen and what I've heard and the stories people tell me, it is
It can
rough.
be.
It is
Yeah.
rough. I mean, just
Hmm.
just the American landscape and what's happening now with women's health and child
Yeah.
labor and banning books. Um, we're as a society, we love mothers and we love martyrs. We
Hmm.
don't love women who are mouthy or stand up for themselves or
Right.
step out of the societal norms in any way, shape, or form. And that's
I
what I
know.
love doing on my podcast. Just
Yeah.
poking that bear. But at the same time, just allowing a platform for other people who look and sound like me to feel
Mhm.
safe in the fact that, yeah, we exist and there's a community out here for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that, kind of poking the bear, like poke the bear and run away real fast. But, I mean, it's a conversation that, like worth having. And when it comes up, not to back away and shy from. And that's one thing, with Improper Mimi that I pretty much grew up trying to say the right thing, stay on the
Mhm.
right side of everything, do as you're told, blah, 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 all that good stuff. But I mean, there's so much that, we as women, our opinions, matter. Our desires of what we want for our own lives, matter. I do have one daughter, one and done. Denisha, I love you much. But yeah, and as she's getting older, sometimes people are asking me like, "Oh, when is she?" And I'm like, "Well, why are you asking me about when she's going to do this or when she's going to do that?" I'm like, she's happy, she's healthy. I'm proud of her for everything that she's doing. I'm like, and I am not the one to be wanting to be. I mean, not that I don't want to be a grandma. I'll make a great grandma. And she's already told me that, if and when she has kids, that my mom is going to help. I'm like, whoa, what about me? Like, I'm responsible. I can help. I
I'm
just,
your mom. I'm responsible.
exactly. You came out fine. You just have to check with me because I may be traveling somewhere. I may
Right.
not be home, but,
Right.
but I could be here. I can help, But yeah, it's empowering, I think, kind of in a way, and which is also, I think, me being drawn to you too, just our ability to speak freely. It's empowering too that in this society with the expectations on us that yeah, we can state what we want, what we don't want, and hey, my life is just as great. Sometimes I forget I have a kid now, and I'm like, yeah, I don't have any kids, and I'm like, oh wait, yeah, I do. She's just
She's
old now,
grown.
so
She's
yeah,
grown.
she's grown.
Yeah, and I think especially for us as women of color, like we
Hmm.
as long as we can, we should. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that it is a burden of responsibility for us, but if we have the ability and the want to do it, we should. And you and I obviously both have the want, the desire and the ability to do it. So, yeah,
Mhm.
it this is this it's it man, I I love being a woman. Being a woman in this
Mm,
country can sometimes be really, really hard. I live in
yeah.
California, so I count my lucky stars every single night that I had the privilege of being born here. And,
Mm, mhm.
certain protections are in place here that are being ripped away in other places. But
Yeah.
man, it's a rough time out there.
Yeah, it really is. And even, I talk often also about burdens, not burdens, but boundaries, setting up those boundaries, kind of from the get go, whether it's boundaries at work or whether it's boundaries at home, with your partner or with, the family or whatever, or, boundaries when you're out having a good time and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I want to stop. You
Yeah.
can always stop, back up, and just let people know like what you're okay with and what you're not okay with. Um, and so I've always had, kind of that fun, wacky time of, exploring and trying new things and not, being shy about it, So you know, that and this probably was even before my 40s because they say once you're 40 you're free,
Oh,
but yeah, I think I've always had that adventurous kind of spirit.
I definitely grew into mine because there was a time when I
Mhm.
was a shy little girl. I was afraid to be seen, and I
Mhm.
I look at that little girl with so much. I feel like I went through a cathartic phase when my oldest niece graduated high school and went to college because
Mm,
she went away
mhm.
to school, to a private school, to a, a school with a completely different cultural makeup than she grew up in. And so we're
Right.
very similar in that way. And I wrote her a book, a very short little novella. It was like
Oh.
16 pages of all the things I wish I'd known at that age. And I called it Benchmarks
Mhm.
Are Bullshit. And I felt like that helped heal the little girl who was afraid to be seen.
Mm.
And it just, the 23 years of experience I'd had since she was born to that point, or the 18 years of experience. I'm 23 years older than her. Again, math is hard. And
Mhm.
I was like, to be on the other side of this and to be able to pass down this wisdom is so important to me for her, but also
Mhm.
for me, because there was a part of me there that I could nurture, who, because she felt so broken and alone, because the culture
Mm.
shock of
Mhm.
leaving Los Angeles, moving to Philadelphia was rough.
Mm.
But you
Yeah.
know what? I talk about how I dropped out of the Ivy League and then ended up graduating from a state school. But all of that helped shape the Paulette that is confident in herself and
Right.
comfortable being this person.
Yeah.
And I like me.
Isn't that a great thing to say? Like, wake up in the morning
Yeah.
and be like, I do. I like me.
And
Yeah.
you know what? There wasn't always a time in my life that I felt comfortable saying that, even out loud, even thinking it, much less in a public forum, like to a microphone, right? And
Yeah.
I love what you said about, after your 40s you're free, and this is getting back to what I was saying about Gen Z. They're figuring that out earlier. They
Yeah.
are a
Oh my
little bit
gosh.
loud, and they're a little bit in their like loud and wrong phase, I've heard it say, where they're just like so confident about what they're saying with the wrong. They just
Uh-huh.
haven't had the life experience yet to kind of shave off those rougher points. But
Yeah.
the thing about boundaries, like learning your boundaries and knowing how to enforce them, is another
Yeah.
big thing in the whole Latino realm, because
Mhm.
our boundaries gets, it's very easy to be stomped on. It's we have a lot of people pleasing behavior in the culture. We have a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of sweeping shit under the rug. And am I
Mhm.
allowed to cuss on your show? I'm sorry.
Oh
It is
yeah,
called Improper
absolutely.
Meanie. Mimi.
It is
It's
improper,
improper.
so yeah,
Okay.
it's
So
okay.
yeah, just sweeping shit under the rug. And I'm like, ugh, can we stop, please? But
Yeah.
I talk about being child free as a boundary. Like, that's a boundary I'm not going to cross. Like, that is the
Mhm.
measure of my self awareness, that I
Right.
know that that path is not for me. And self awareness is peak adulting,
There
as
you
the
go.
kids say. The kids love to say they're adulting. So it's
Yeah.
peak adulting. It's like the ultimate in adulting, knowing you, like knowing your limits.
Yeah. And when you say and sharing it or speaking it, that's another big part of it, because it's one thing to kind of recognize, okay, this is something that I will or will not talk about in my life, and this is a desire that I do or don't have. But to be able to express that to others, much less our families, who are so influential and that we interact, well, some of us, most of us, interact with them quite a lot. um, I talk about, having different circles of friends. You definitely have your family, but then I definitely have my sucias, from book club. But then I also have, and yes, that is,
I love
we
that that's
read.
what your book club is called, Las Sucias. I need to get in on this
Yes.
book club.
Oh my goodness. Yes. There could be some pretty spicy,
I'm down
books
for
that we
that.
read.
I am totally here for that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then I have like some engineering friends, so, women in engineering, you don't come across that often either, but, we want to increase, all of that, STEM and science and technology and all that good stuff. But having these different kind of villages or support systems around
Yep.
you, it can be easy sometimes to compartmentalize and be like, "Oh, I could tell them that, but I can't tell them that." And so
Yeah.
that freedom, being able to grow up and embrace your individuality and being able to speak openly and freely about it is empowering. That's a big growth point, I think, for people. And you're right, some people are picking it up a lot sooner now, and it took me a while to embrace it, I think. So,
I actually was really looking forward to 40. I got married when I was 38, right? So I
mhm.
did a lot of things later in life. I started this career later in life, later,
Yeah.
like at the best point of my life.
I
Um,
know.
but I got married at 38, and I was like, I can't wait to be 40 so I can just say all the shit that's in my brain, and people will just be like, yeah, that's that's how a woman like that age talks. But I really felt like I
Uh-huh.
had to wait. Because like at 40, that's when you become invisible and society dismisses you because now you're old. And I'm like, I have never felt younger. And there's a big trope that comes up with the child free community about, you
Mm,
know, people always place like coworkers needing time off because their kids are doing this, their kids are doing that, and being asked to work the holidays, being asked to cover the
Oh yeah.
shifts for people who want to spend time with their families. And I'm always thinking, I am the kid. Like, I'm the kid. I'm the kid
Yeah.
in that equation. So, like, my parents want me home,
Yeah. Like
you
I
know?
want to be around them, hang out, like
And
be
I
close to you.
still feel like a kid. So it's this really funny thing where I was like so looking forward to hitting that age, that threshold
Yeah.
where like I could just speak my mind freely and it was acceptable. Not recognizing I could have done that at any time, but also just feeling like I was so immature and enjoying that, like immature in a good
Yeah.
way. Not that I'm like stupid and reckless, but that like I don't have to grow up.
Yeah. No, growing up is for, old people. We don't have to do that. I swear, sometimes I feel like my daughter is the one taking care of me. She's like, Ma, I think where was it? I went to Colombia like earlier this year and she was like, are you going to send me your travel info? Like, where are you staying? I was like, that's a good idea. Yeah, I think I will. I'll share that with you.
You know what? To this day, I still send my mom my travel info, even when it's me and my
Yeah.
husband. I'm like, "You're our emergency contact, so thanks."
Yeah.
But yeah,
My mom is all the way in Ohio and she's my emergency contact too.
exactly. And vice versa. Just like with your daughter, my mother went to South America last summer, and I was like, "Where's your
Uh-huh.
travel itinerary? I need to have
Right.
that."
Like, I need to know where you are.
And that's a symbol of our community, right? Like you were talking about
Mhm.
these different support groups and systems and groups that you have, and that's when you know you're in community, when you care
Yeah.
enough and
Mhm.
feel supported that way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that it always makes me feel good, knowing that there's someone to talk to that isn't going to judge me too much, maybe a little bit. There might be a little bit of judgment there, but not judge us too much, you know. And even when you're talking about that freedom of like, oh, wanting to reach a certain age, I look at my grandmother now, and God bless her. She's, oh, great. Okay. Oh, great. Now I'm going to forget how old she is. I think she's like 94 or 5 or something like that. Let's say
Wow.
94. That's a good age.
Yeah.
Um, and I just love her energy, love her spiciness. Okay. Love, talking to her and hearing, her stories. And I'm like, I can't wait till I'm like in my 90s. I'm going to be like, this is, I'm going to be, everyone's going to be like, follow me. Let's go with Monty Mimi, you know? Oh my
I
goodness.
love
So the
that.
family is just, yeah, it's like so much to look forward to. And I just appreciate, yeah, definitely having that system of family around me.
Yeah. And I know
Yeah.
that I found like groups on the internet, on Facebook and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was hearing all these stories or reading all these stories of people's coming out to their parents or their families and feeling shunned. And I was horrified,
Oh
um,
wow. Hmm.
because I couldn't imagine my parents doing that to me. But that's
Yeah.
someone's real reality.
Hmm.
That's their true lived experience. And as much as we might feel like we're progressive and families don't
Yeah.
do that to each other anymore, it does happen, and they need support, and they need to be able to just find us through a Google search or
Right.
something like that, right?
Yeah, they need a safe space because you really don't know what people are going through. And it could be something subtle, that parents say. Or I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the young man had cancer. And his mother brought it up every single time. She was always talking about his cancer. And he's like, I don't want that to be the conversation. Like when we're around family, and that should not be the conversation that we're always having. Like, let's think about something else. Um, Even, I was a teenage mom, and so a single mom. And so a lot of times, you know, growing up, had my daughter, I think I was a senior in high school, and then I went to college, and then, living life and everything. But that would be a question that would often come up, be like, no, I'm not married. No, I'm not divorced. Yeah, I'm a single mom. And I'm okay with that, like, hey, by any means necessary, you have to do what you got to do. And boom, bam, look at her. She's great. But yeah, I mean, it's, providing that safe space, I think, is really important. that, and it also allows other people to learn a little bit about kind of what we're going through, you know?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
I've learned is that my audience is younger than I thought they were, and
Really?
they are not all child free. Some
Mm,
are
mm-hmm.
parents, and they're not even all Latinas, which is fine. Um, but one of my more vocal subscribers is a
Mm-hmm.
white man with kids, and he loves to tell me how he relates everything I talk about back to him because it's all universal. Everything I talk
Yeah.
about is universal. It's just through the child free lens, which is a
Mm-hmm.
tagline of my show. And
Yeah.
I love that he can relate to it, but also he's soaking stuff up because there what may be a day when his daughter is like, I don't want kids. And he's been
Right.
prepared for that. My mom, my favorite episode to record was with my mom.
Oh,
And
wow.
the title of the episode is a direct quote from what she said. No, you're
Mm-hmm.
not entitled to become a grandparent. And I was so
Right.
surprised to hear her say that
Yeah.
because she's Mexican. Like she immigrated here as a very young person. She was
Mm-hmm.
17 years old, coming here to, take care of her family. She was going to try to get a job and send money back because they'd been
Yeah.
orphaned. And like like the things that my mother has had to overcome,
Wow.
like I can't give them too much thought because it breaks my heart so deeply. But she's such a strong woman,
Mm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
to hear her say all of these things that are completely contrary to what I've heard other Mexican women and mothers say
Right.
was so I don't want to say cathartic, but like the empathy she was displaying, and I think it's because she's been affected by this. Like she has seen what
Mm.
it's like to have child-free kids, and
Mm-hmm.
so it does not at all bother me that there are parents in my audience because by listening, you're possibly preparing yourself for a future without grandkids, or
Yeah.
a conversation with your own kids about whether or not they want to have kids, and how it's their decision. It's their
Right.
reality, not
Yeah.
yours. And I loved that she was like, grandparents out or parents out there, you need to hear this. You are
Mm-hmm.
not entitled to grandkids. And I was okay, well, no one is going to fight you.
Exactly. Yes. And
I was like,
it's
Mama Bear came out, it was so hilariously ironic.
oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, I did listen to that. That was a good episode.
Well, thank you.
Yes. And even, like your podcasting style, and like I've learned things from you, just from even your TikTok and listening to you. I was like, and
Oh,
I went to your website, I was like, that's a good, this is one of our top, episodes. I'm like, that's a good idea. You should totally put it out there that
well,
other people like this. You probably will too.
I stole that tactic from someone else, so please feel free.
I will. I'm gonna do it.
All these
And you're
best practices we can share with one another.
yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like that's what I do all, like most of the days I'm like working, I'm coming up with a new process, I'm implementing it. I'm like, well, this could be better. I'm like, well, let me implement that in my own life too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And even with your podcast, so you've gone through some like major rebranding lately,
Oh,
you know?
yeah. That
This
just
is getting a
happened.
little techie.
So it's
Yeah.
it's still very like it's still etched in memory. I can't wait until I've forgotten all about it.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so the original premise of my show, so like how I introduced myself as being like, Erato is a muse. She's the muse of erotic poetry. So maybe las sucias will
Improper.
will enjoy that. Um,
Yeah.
so I woke up one day and just was like, it felt like a missile passed through me. And I had this idea that everyone is creative and it is my job here on earth to ensure everybody knows that, to rediscover their creativity. So I launched the podcast with the
Mm,
intention of helping Latinas find confidence through their creativity. But first, it was
mhm.
convincing them that they were creative. So that was a whole first season. And
Yeah.
then the second season, I wanted to focus more on the child-free part of the equation because I niched down. They keep telling you, and when you go to podcasting school, which is the internet, to niche
Right.
down, niche down, niche down. I'm like, all right, Latinas over 40, child-free Latinas. No one's talking to them.
Hey.
So I was like, let's help child-free Latinas find their confidence through creativity. Great.
Yeah.
So the second season, I was like, okay, let's focus more on the child-free Latina part as opposed to the
Mhm.
creativity part. And we'll model confidence through all of these stories, these interviews I had would show, right?
Yeah.
And then the name stopped making sense because I really
Mm.
leaned in hard to the child free Latina part. And I had so much fun conducting these interviews. These women that I spoke to, I found in all corners of the world. I found one lady on TikTok, just
Uh-huh.
like you found me. I slipped into her DMs. It
Whoop.
was great.
It
And
works.
it does work. It's my top rated episode of all time. It has the most downloads by like 10 times the other ones.
Oh,
But we had
wow.
such a great conversation, and
Mhm.
everyone just represented a different model of behavior and way to be a child-free Latina, right?
Yeah.
And it was so much fun, and I was like, well, this is what I need to do. It's the
Mhm.
child-free Latina part that needs the more attention as opposed to
Mhm.
the confidence and creativity. That'll all come in time. So the podcast conference you were talking about in Florida,
Yeah.
you talk about your podcast all the time and you have to explain what it's about. And if the title doesn't make sense, that becomes really awkward. So for three,
Mm.
4 solid days, I'm talking about my podcast and people are like, but how does that tie to child free Latinas? Like, no one said that to me explicitly because I
Mhm.
would jump in with a really good elevator pitch explanation right
Yeah.
away. But I felt it. Like, I felt it becoming increasingly awkward. I was like, I've got to change this damn name. So I came home
Yeah.
and I'm like, what am I going to do? Because everything, all of my socials, the website,
Mhm.
everything was tied to the title, The Maker Muse. So
Yeah.
I came up with this name in a strategy session with some other podcasters. And it was, again, one of those lightning rod moments where like I got chills. And I was
Yeah.
like, La vida más chévere. Like, that's it. That's it right there. Because now I say it to other Spanish speakers, they immediately can understand what I'm talking about. Living your
Right.
best life through the child-free lens. And it
Yeah.
like makes total sense. Cool. So
Yeah.
I no longer feel awkward about that. But also I realized that part of the confidence that one needs in this life doesn't just have to come from creativity, but there's so
Mm.
many ways to approach it. And while I still firmly believe that every single person on this planet is able to be creative even if they can't
Mhm.
draw, I the child-free Latina portion of the equation just became so important. The
Yeah.
response that I was getting from people were like, I need more of this. It's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Yeah.
let's pivot. So the
Yeah.
rebrand has been fun.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely, everything's coming together.
Yeah, I love it, and even um taking that leap of, because I mean, listen, you guys listen to us and you hear us having lots of fun and everything, but it can be stressful or nerve-wracking to consider a full change, a rebrand. Like even switching, we're going to get a little podcasty here, but even like switching your host, like where your episodes and where your stuff is hosted, switching to a new provider, you're worried like, oh, I'm going to lose listeners. Are they going to follow me? Can they find me? Like, so you think about all these things before making a change. And
Oh,
yeah, you survived. You look good. You made it
thank you.
happen.
I am. I'm loving it, and I'm loving being able to talk about the rebrand and surviving it. It like
Yeah.
it was nowhere near as hard as I made it out to be in my own head. And
Mm-hmm.
probably the smartest thing I did, like no one told me to do this. I was like, I don't want to lose the very few listeners I have. I kept the same feed. Like I just changed the
Mm-hmm.
artwork. I also had to change the
Yeah.
URLs to point to it and all of that, but that was the easiest part. So I didn't have
Yeah.
to start fresh somewhere else. I was like, okay, well, today we're changing the name of this. And I had a couple of episodes where I was like, hey, so this title is going to be changing and here's the working title now. And then it was like, big
Yeah.
announcement. The new name is
Yeah.
this. So now everybody
And that's the
knows.
way to do it. Yeah, that's the way to do it. Make an announcement, make it something that people are hearing, they're seeing, that they're like, oh, yeah, this is coming up. Oh, I just have to follow this instead of that. No problem. Like, yeah, yeah. So they can still keep with you.
I had
Oh,
um I had 5 weeks between coming home from Florida from that conference and going to the next conference in Vegas. And I was like, I got to
Oh
make it
my.
happen before the next one. And yeah, that was super stressful, but it worked
Yeah.
because everybody I talked to at the second conference understood exactly what I was saying. And
Look at
because we're
that.
checking out each other's podcasts in real time, my numbers jumped. So I was like, oh, I did something smart without even realizing it.
Be like, it worked. Yes. Oh
Yeah.
my
So
goodness.
if you're going to rebrand, do it right before a conference.
That makes perfect sense.
And I don't know if you can, your
Ah,
viewers can see my shirt. It says Boricua and Bougie.
yes, Puerto
Um,
Rico. Yeah.
I'm representing a Puerto Rican chef I follow on Instagram. And so this is her
Ooh.
shirt. And when I saw it, I was like, I gotta have that because one of my neighbors called me bougie. And I was like, should I be offended? Or should I be like, thank you? So I
No,
took it.
that's like,
I try to
yeah.
see like the best in people. This is like my new thing I'm working on this year. I try to approach people and the weird shit they might say with the most kindness
Mm-hmm.
and give them the biggest benefit of the doubt. I was like, she meant that as a
Right.
compliment.
Exactly.
And even if she
Or how
didn't,
about I'm going to take it as a compliment? Be like,
and
that's
even if
right.
she didn't, in my brain,
Mm-hmm.
it's a compliment. So when I saw this shirt, I was like, oh, so perfect. So perfect.
Yeah, yeah. I'm working on my rich auntie status, so
Oh, yeah.
that's what I.
Oh, yeah. There's been a lot of
Yeah.
financial planning in this family of ours.
Hey, another important topic that, would definitely is coming up with improper meme. We're talking about finances, talking about the child-free life, talking about, just whole body positivity, like all kind of things for everyone to check out and listen to coming up. Oh, wow. So yeah, so I mean, we could probably keep going on forever. I know like we're just having a good old time chit-chatting up here and sharing like some of our tips and tricks of life and beliefs and just um things that we love and that we love to share. So but before we go, I do want to ask you, maybe what is one misconception, like
Oh
some
my gosh.
improper, you know, thought that people may have had about you or your podcast or your business or anything like that
There's this
that
really
sticks out?
weird, there's this really terrible idea that
Mm.
child free people hate children. And I actually have assembled a panel of women to discuss this, both mothers and child free women, to discuss this
Mm-hmm.
idea and like where this originated from, because I think it's that kind of black and white thinking is very dangerous
Yeah.
because
Mm-hmm.
there are we're not a monolith. Like all child free people are not the same. Sure, some
Yeah.
child free
I didn't
people
even
hate
like kids
kids.
before I had one.
Some
Right.
parents
Yeah.
hate kids. I've heard
They're
way too many parents say things like, I like my kids, but everybody else's I hate. I'm like, okay, fine. So it's I just that is the worst misconception I think of just
mm,
child free people in general. Like we don't all hate kids.
yeah.
Like I would say that 99.17 of us do not.
Yeah.
So where did that come from? So
Right.
I did a podcast episode about how it's okay to be child free and
Mm-hmm.
how trying to change the media narrative around people without children is daunting, but it has to be done because in Disney movies, for example, the villain
Mm,
is always a child free person. The Sea Witch
mm,
Ursula and The Little Mermaid, Cruella
yeah.
Deville,
Mm-hmm.
Scar in The Lion King. Like they don't have children and they're always, or the wicked stepmother, Maleficent,
mm,
the wicked
mm-hmm.
queen, like that's what we're feeding to children. So it starts
Yeah.
very very early that child free
Mm-hmm.
people are dangerous and they hate kids and all these other horrible things that are just not true. So
Right.
that that
Yeah.
that's my fight.
That's the hill we're going to die on. Be like, listen, that is not true. And we're here to dispel the myth.
Like,
But,
I don't love seeing kids hanging out in breweries, but the most I'm gonna do is roll my eyes. I'm not gonna be like, "Oh, those are horrible parents." Like, whatever. I'm here to
right. Be
have a few
like,
beers and leave.
yeah. And that's A. And we're going to stay in our lane. And that's what we'll do. And you just keep yours over there and enjoy your night out. Oh, now, do you have any projects or events that are coming up that we want to share with people? I mean, we already talked about like the rebranding, the launch, and
Yeah.
I want everyone to definitely be able to find you. But do you have any other like things that you want to share with people?
Right now in the rebranding phase, the post rebranding phase,
Hmm.
it's just about helping people find it. So thank you for
Yeah,
having me on and exposing me to your audience or your audience to me so that they
definitely.
can go check it out. I'd love a couple of more downloads every week. That would be
Hmm.
nice.
Yep, yep.
I'm not planning anything um big anytime soon. Like I did mention,
Yeah.
benchmarks are bullshit is for sale. I can leave a little discount code for your audience if they would like to
Yeah.
if they would like a copy. It is aimed at the 18-year-old going off to college for the first time, but again, what I
Yeah.
talk about is universal. So, I've had
Right.
friends who are in their 40s and 50s and be like, "Oh yeah, I needed that reminder." So,
That's
I'll
right.
make that available if anybody would like a copy of that.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, I'm sure everyone would appreciate it. Yeah. I know that a lot of the things we talk about are, you know, they're relatable, whether you're the exact same as me or the exact opposite of me. It is relatable because it's something that everyone should learn about and be able to express and feel comfortable in doing so. So I love it. I am totally here for La Vida Más Chévere.
Thank you so much, Mimi. This has been a riot. This has been so much fun.
Yes. Yeah. I can't wait. Hopefully we will be able to meet in person one day. But, like until then, we'll be on the tickety talk, taking care of our plants and our families and, just sharing those experiences. Oh, my goodness. Yep. And Paulette, how can people find you? ¿Dónde estás?
So, part of the rebrand was simplifying my identity online. I can be
Hmm.
found as Paulette Erato everywhere. PauletteErato.com, at Paulette
Yes.
Erato on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. I'm Paulette Erato. Paulette Erato.
I am Paulette Erato today, and I'll be Paulette Erato tomorrow. And that is where you can find our wonderful guest from today. Paulette, thank you so much for being here and for
You're very
sharing with
welcome.
us.
Thank you so
and
much.
Yes, definitely. And everyone else, I'm like, listen, so glad that you joined us today. And remember, be sure to share this episode with your friends, your family, anyone who you think would enjoy this wonderful time that we had today. And as always, I want to keep encouraging everyone to keep sharing your stories. We love those Black and brown stories and the stories of women and our families and our jobs and our accomplishments. And we're awesome. So just keep telling all of your stories. Don't tell all your business. It may not be proper, but, just keep sharing your stories and your good times. Thanks, everyone.